I think the Yemenis are just a pawn for the Trump team, who's trying to start a war with Iran. This attack on Yemen was completely unjustified. The Houthis had just, been making threats to Israel if they didn't follow through on the ceasefire and allow humanitarian aid into the Palestinians, the people of Gaza, that then they would renew the attacks and shut down the Red Sea. They've honored the ceasefire agreement. They had not engaged in any other attacks. And here, the United States on its own decides to launch, bombing runs. And in the course of it, they've killed, I've heard, at least 13 people. There are others have suggested as upwards of 100. But the United States murdered children, and that's exactly what it's murder. This is not incidental casualties. This is innocent blood that the United States has shed, and it really sickens me to see it. And so now Yemen's going to strike back. Reportedly, they've fired missiles 2 straight days at the USS Harry S. Truman, the aircraft carrier. Yeah. So I see no independent confirmation of that. You've not seen the U.S. Department of Defense come out and confirm it. Of course, they haven't denied it either. So I just don't know. We're not seeing any video images, nor are we likely to. But I'm sure that Yemen will respond and will retaliate if they haven't already.
Larry, here is what Rubio said in terms of the conflict with Yemenis, with Houthis.
These people controlling which ships can go through and which ones cannot. And so your question is, how long will this go on? It will go on until they no longer have the capability to do that.
Yeah. It seems to me the same sort of attitude on the part of the war in Ukraine, that we're going to fight Russia until they don't have any.
To the bitter end. Yeah, we're with it to the end. Oh, guess what? The end is here. The Trump administration is laboring under the false assumption or belief that the Biden administration didn't launch any kind of serious attacks on Yemen. That the Biden administration was just using pinpricks and just, show they were for all show, no substance. So that's nonsense. They kept trying to knock out the Houthi capability and found out it was too difficult to do. These are mobile missile launchers. It'd be one thing if Yemen had fixed military bases and with these, installed missile launchers and silos. Yeah, the United States could probably take those out. But that's not what Yemen has, and they're moving them around. And in a lot of cases, the United States has been, bombing decoys. And in the course of this, I looked at Perplexity AI. They say that the Houthis have shot down 30 MQ-9 Predator drones. Well, each one of those goes for at least $30 million a pop. So you're talking their minimum $390 million worth of U.S. technology shot down. Others have said that it's a much higher number, 15 to 18. Well, if it's 15, that's closing in on a $500 million. So the Houthis have been having some effect in punching back at the United States. But all of this is it's a distraction. This is the United States is doing this as a pretext to create justification for a military strike on Iran. It really appears to be that way, based upon listening to the comments of Rubio, Michael Waltz, Trump. This is not just about opening the Red Sea to freedom of navigation. It's beyond that. They're blaming this as the Iranian-backed Houthis, and that they're insisting that Iran supplied all these missiles. Maybe they did. I don't have any information one way or the other to dispute that or corroborate that. But the United States, the language that was released by the White House, and then you had a subsequent release on Friday. Well, before the bombing on Friday, you had the Institute for the Study of War put out this thing about Iran's building a nuclear weapon. This has been a neocon wet dream for years. They've been trying to go to war with Iran for at least the last 30 years. I think now they're going to do it. And if Trump falls into this trap, God, he didn't learn a damn thing from his first administration and the subsequent attacks on it. He had a real chance to be a genuine peace president, to bring peace to Ukraine, to bring peace to Gaza. But instead, man, he's fully in the pocket of the Zionist lobby. They got him bought and paid for. He's not an independent thinker on this at all. And the Zionists they start playing the accordion, and he starts dancing like a monkey. That's all. Trump is behaving like an organ grinder monkey. Is the best. I'm sad to say.
The war with Iran, Larry, by the way, has a broader issue. It's not just about the United States and Iran. You can consider all the Arab states together with Israel. You can see the waterways of Bab el-Mandab, and as we see the Red Sea that Houthis are controlling, and Hormuz in Iran.
Right.
They're close to Iran. How is Donald Trump prepared to do that? Is Donald Trump, because the way that he's fighting with Canada, Mexico, Europe,
Greenland,
and
Europe,
Greenland, Panama, and sending troops to Panama. Right now, they want to fight Iran and Houthis. What is the economy that he was talking about?
Yeah, no, he's people are looking for stability, predictability, peace, and I mean he's lost his damn mind. It's this chest thumping, bombast, threatening. That's always been a part of him, but he kept insisting, campaigning on the concept that he was going to be Mr. Peace. Well, he's not. And it's going to provoke violence in Panama. The United States has no business controlling the Panama Canal. It hasn't been an issue. They blame the Chinese. The Chinese were running the place the entire time that Trump was president from 2017 to 2020, for God's sake. And Trump isn't paying attention to the fact that Iran, right now, I think we're coming up to the conclusion of the annual joint naval military exercise that Iran has with Russia and China. Now, it's interesting. You go on, you search the internet and say, this is the fifth time they've run this exercise. Okay, here we are in 2025. So go with me. The first exercise was 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. Okay, Nima, math quiz. How many is that?
Yeah.
Is that 5?
Yeah.
No, that's 7. They've been doing this, they've had 7 exercises now. And so what the concept of doing those joint exercises means, there are contingency plans in place for China and Russia to come to Iran's aid militarily in the event of an unprovoked attack. And I think that's actually where we're headed. That, reportedly some of these jets that hit targets in Yemen came out of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar. If that's true, then you can anticipate that Yemen may start firing back at those countries. Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar is a big fat target. Wouldn't be surprised to see that hit. But if Washington labors under, in my view, the false belief that Iran is weak and can't protect itself, and that the United States is the strongest military in the world, and we can do whatever we want, and we'll just really hurt them. I anticipate that if the United States is foolish enough to try to launch attacks into Iran, just as Israel did on October 27th, I believe it was, that you may wind up seeing some U.S. aircraft shot down inside Iran. And then all of a sudden you got U.S. pilots being held as prisoners of war. This is getting potentially very dangerous again. We had sort of an opening for peace. Trump did reportedly send a letter to President Brzezinski offering to initiate talks. And the Iranians have said that they're considering the offer, but against this offer, they're getting these threats. So Iran has suffered as a result of the sanctions, but I don't see Iran caving and cowering in fear before this. I think they're preparing to fight back if necessary.
It seems that many people do not understand that these Arab states, when it comes to fighting Houthis, they don't have any sort of power to fight Houthis.
Right.
They don't have the capability to fight Houthis. We've been seeing this being proven to us. They have been fighting Houthis. That's why Houthis are feeling so similar to the people. They feel so sympathetic to the people of Gaza because they have been suffering the same sort of attacks. And what's so amazing, Larry, by the way, that in the mainstream media, when it comes to the main reason of Houthis doing this, attacking in Israeli ships, they don't mention the main reason of that.
Right.
They don't. Yeah. Here is what Hexet said, Larry. Here is what Hexet said.
Campaign is about freedom of navigation and restoring deterrence. The minute the Houthis say, we'll stop shooting at your ships, we'll stop shooting at your drones, this campaign will end. But until then, it will be unrelenting. We got the reports last night, Maria. The Houthi capital felt like an earthquake. Dozens and dozens of precision-heavy munitions dropping precisely on the targets that we wanted to hit, sending a very clear message. And the message is clear to Iran as well. And the president said it in his truth. Your support of the Houthis needs to end immediately. We will hold you accountable as the sponsor of this proxy. And I echo his statement. We will not be nice about it. This is not the Biden administration. The message is clear. We will come after the Houthis until they stop shooting at our ships, and the Iranians better stay out of it.
Look, that clip right there illustrates that Pete Hegseth is completely unqualified to be Secretary of Defense. He is an intellectual lightweight. He's giving you the comic book version. Instead of acknowledging and saying, look, we understand that the Houthis started this as a way to bring pressure on Israel to stop the genocide against the Palestinian people. That's why they're doing it. And instead of him truthfully acknowledging that since the ceasefire that both Hamas and the Zionists accepted, that the Houthis had not carried out any further strikes, and they hadn't carried out any further threats against shipping. So this was, if anything, an unprovoked attack by the United States. It was an act of war by the United States, completely unjustified. Now, instead of acknowledging that, there was a way to actually stop the harassment of Israeli shipping, which was for the United States to use its power and influence to compel Israel to stop the murder of Palestinians to respect the boundaries of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and to stop allowing settlers to, rob the Palestinian people of their land. But instead, the United States is enabling all of that. And so this conflict was going to continue, and more people are going to die. But to the credit of the Houthis, they're the only country in that region standing up and actually doing something to try to support the Palestinian people. Everybody else, particularly Erdogan of Turkey, good God, what a fraud he is.
Larry, here is what Witkoff said in terms of the ceasefire between Israel and Gaza.
Israel is a non-starter, Jake. I spent, along with Senior Policy Director Eric Traeger from Mike Waltz's office, I spent close to 7.5 hours at the Arab Summit. We had really positive conversation there. I would describe it as game-changing, but for Hamas's response. So we spent a good deal of time talking about a bridge proposal that would see the release of 5 live hostages that included Idan Alexander, and also, by the way, see the release of a substantial amount of Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails, which would be a wonderful thing for these Palestinian families. And I thought the proposal was compelling. The Israelis were informed about it and advised about it beforehand. And after waiting for 2 or 3 days from Hamas, which is their usual mode, we got an unacceptable response. I'm not going to go into the specific details of what made it unacceptable, but it was totally unacceptable. I think there's an opportunity for them, but the opportunity is closing fast. What happened with the Houthis yesterday, what happened with our strike ought to inform as to where we stand with regard to terrorism and our tolerance level for terrorist actions. And I would encourage Hamas to get much more sensible than how they have been.
Do you understand what he's talking about?
No, we're the terrorists. I mean, this is what's so ridiculous about this. People like Witkoff and others. They keep accusing Hamas of terrorism. Hamas is not killing Israeli civilians. The only one killing civilians is Israel and the United States. In our bombing of Yemen the other day, we killed women and children. Those children weren't launching missiles into the Red Sea. Well, but we just chalk it, oh, that's collateral damage. We didn't mean it. I've been watching this bullshit go on for 50 years. I mean, it's the same nonsense where we portray Israel as the victim. We portray all of the Palestinians and Arabs as the great evil, and then justify using violence against them in ways that we would, if it was used against us, we would condemn and be rightly outraged. So, I think, whatever attempt at playing an honest broker Witkoff had tried, he's abandoned that. And the fact that he's justifying these strikes on Yemen, again, I think this is all pretext, laying a predicate to go after and attack Iran. But again, the situation with Iran has changed in light of the security agreement that Russia signed with Iran on January 17th. And within that, they did a pretty extensive job of laying out how Russia would support Iran's peaceful nuclear program. Well, it's the nuclear program that the United States is using as a justification for carrying out attacks on Iran. This has the potential to fall apart and get extremely messy. And because what's going to happen is, let me give one possible scenario, that the Houthis will succeed in sinking one ship. And man, if it's an aircraft carrier, boy, that'll be a blow. Well, Trump's then going to have egg all over his face, all of his chest thumping and threats. He'll be attacked so he's got to show strength. Well, how do you show strength? Well, show strength by conducting more military operations. So then they will attack Iran. Well, then Iran's going to turn around and attack the U.S. military bases in Qatar, for starts, take out Al Udeid and the several military outposts in Syria. And then this escalates. And and within all of this, Russia and China are going to definitely have a say, because they're watching that the United States is looking always for an opportunity to attack them. This notion that the United States can impose its will on every other country and that we can do whatever the hell we want. We're behaving like an out of control serial rapist, in my view. And I know those are harsh terms. And people accuse me of being un-American. My ancestors, I got 400 years worth of family history here in the United States. We fought for liberty. We fought for freedom. We didn't fight to go out and be the number one terrorist in the world, which we have become. In terms of, what's the measure? How many civilians have we killed for political purposes? That's the definition of terrorism.
Mark, how much of a problem is Netanyahu for Trump 2.0?
I don't know. He seems perfectly happy pushing Netanyahu's chair in. There's only one blip in Trump's full-throated support of Israel from his first administration, the interim period, and the new administration. A lot of people in the alt media jumped at the fact that he reposted a link to a video by Jeffrey Sachs where Jeffrey Sachs criticized Trump. But nothing else, absolutely nothing else since then. It would seem that when Trump got Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire with Hamas and the hostage exchange, that he had the same deal, by the way, that he had rejected earlier with Biden. We don't know what the terms of that are. There was always a carrot and a stick. Well, I think it's become pretty clear since then what the carrot was. You agree to the ceasefire with Hamas now, and we'll fully back your accelerated timetable to ethnically cleanse all of the Palestinians from Palestine and create the greater Israel during the next 4 years. Because Trump has openly talked about moving all of the Palestinians out and the great real estate opportunities in Gaza, right? And he's actually also mentioned the West Bank as well. That has been the slow motion policy of every Israeli and American president for decades, right? The settlers, right? The settlement by settlement, house by house, bulldozing, driving the Palestinians out, and then resettling more Western Jews, right, on that ground as new Israeli citizens. That has been, but it's obviously been decided to accelerate that timetable. Now, Biden actually tried to do it first and failed again, right? Blinken went to Egypt and Jordan and tried to get them to open their borders, right? Particularly in Egypt, so that the Palestinians from Gaza could be driven across the border. And then, of course, Nakba, they're never going to be allowed back. And Blinken, whoever, couldn't get it done. Well, Trump is now applying pressure again, and for the moment, the Egyptian president, at least, possibly the Jordanian leader, king, this Western puppet, still appear to be resisting that idea. But I think Trump can ultimately put a lot of pressure on them because the Egyptian military is to a large part funded by the United States and has been for decades. And Egypt is in a very bad economic situation. The only thing that's keeping them from that right now is Saudi Arabia. Because Saudi Arabia also finances Egypt to a very high degree. I don't see a lot of space between Trump and Netanyahu right now. I see Trump and Netanyahu, that Trump is doing everything that Netanyahu wants and within reason. I mean, sure, Netanyahu would like Trump to go to direct war with Iran tomorrow. Okay, that's the not within reason part. But other than that, if Trump has already green-lighted and normalized the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. I mean, he can call it whatever he wants, a real estate deal. We'll give them a much better place to live. I saw just today a small news report that the Trump administration was going to Somalia. And
Associated Press reported
that. Yeah, reported that, trying to get
Sudan, Somalia,
to take the Palestinians in. Right? They're fully behind this, right? And if Netanyahu could get that out of Trump has already normalized and greenlighted it. The Europeans didn't raise an objection in the slightest. The Western mainstream media barely blinked. That's where we are. He's already got the West completely or almost on board with the abrupt and complete ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. And the creation of Greater Israel. So what more could Netanyahu ask for? Nothing, right? I mean, that's already insane. So I don't see a lot of light at the moment between. So I don't see that Netanyahu presents a real problem for Trump at this point. They seem to be on the same page, at least right now. And that is a horrible, horrible page.
Obviously, he sent a letter to Iranian leadership, and he wants to negotiate with them, but threatening them and putting more sanctions. And how do you see the way that the Iranian leadership and the Iranian president, even, he said that they're not going to negotiate under pressure the way that Donald Trump is trying to impose negotiations?
Okay, so the Iranian supreme leader, right, came out and already quite some time ago said that there can be no negotiations with the U.S., that they are always duplicitous, they never adhere to anything, and that it is wrong to try to negotiate with them. There can be no negotiations with them. And, after seeing Trump rip up the JCPOA before and everything that's happened since, right, how can you, bringing whatever role the U.S. And Israel played alongside Turkey in bringing al-Qaeda to power and genocide in Syria, how can you question that? But even the Iranian president, who was, presenting himself as a reformer who wanted to improve relations with the West, Pezeshkian, a man who has already gained the ire of what is left of the axis of resistance for his, shall we say, pacifism or his refusal to back them, right? As they've come under extreme threat, not just Hezbollah, but others as well. Even he said, we won't negotiate with Trump, and go to hell, do what you will, right? I mean, that's coming from Pezeshkian, that's something at this point. But the interesting thing is, I don't think Trump wants to get embroiled in a war with Iran in the Middle East and the resulting giant surge in oil costs and gasoline that would result in any more than Biden did, right? And there aren't really any options to invade Iran, right? That's not realistic. No, hundreds, 500,000, 1 million U.S. troops. Come on, that's not serious. The far greater, airstrikes, missile strikes is always a possibility, but the problem there is Iran has a really significant missile capability of their own that the U.S. has demonstrated they cannot protect Israel from, much less their military bases throughout the Middle East. So there's not a lot of options there. The biggest threat to Iran is always subversion from within. And the Israelis are very good at that. Mossad, yes, the evil bastards, give them credit. They can assassinate people. They can conduct terrorism and sabotage and whatever they want. They have very powerful networks of minorities, of terrorists, of everything built up within Iran. That's the real threat. That has been reduced somewhat because of Trump's own internal war against the deep state, his purging of U.S. aid and the NED, right? Not because he doesn't believe in the work of the U.S. aid and the NED, but because he identified them as absolutely full of his domestic political opponents, and he wanted them brought to heel. He's not getting rid of U.S. aid.
Exactly.
He's transferring it to Rubio's control in the State Department. So don't have any illusions about what's happening there. But that will limit their ability to reinforce Israeli efforts in that regard over the next 4 years. The interesting thing about that is that Russia, right away in their initial contacts now with the Trump administration, have suggested that they could talk to Iran for the Americans. And the Iranians have seemed to, well, we'll consider if the Russians are in the room again, because they were actually there when the JCPOA was created. And the Iranians won't do business with Trump, they said, right? You ripped up the JCPOA that we already didn't like, but worked for years to achieve. And you assassinated Qasem Soleimani, not only our IRGC general, but a man whom could very well have been Iran's president right now. He was that charismatic and that popular if he hadn't been killed. So we won't talk to you. But if the Russians are in the room, well, maybe. And Russia and Iran have this new improved strategic partnership. The Russians seem convinced that this will keep Iran from pursuing a nuclear deterrent by giving them a powerful conventional deterrent in the form of a new air defense and electronic network that Russia has, according to a lot of accounts, already begun building for Iran, something that will take a few years to build. But Russia is presenting them as, well, if we're in the room, the Iranians will talk to you, right? And we can keep them from the nuclear path that is supposedly the biggest concern. I don't actually necessarily buy that that's the biggest concern. I always thought that that is more of an excuse for Israel to goad the U.S. into an attack than anything else. But that provides if the Trump wants to accomplish things, let Israel do what it wants with the Palestinians, but otherwise stay out of the Middle East and concentrate on China. Look, at every U.S. leader since Obama has been, we want to pivot to China, but been caught up amongst other things along the way and never gotten to it. Trump seems to want to settle the Russia-Ukraine. Yes, he wants to settle it on American terms, and I don't know if that's possible. I certainly hope not. And he would like to, I think, let Israel do what they want, but prevent a wider war with Iran in the Middle East over the next 4 years. I think that's probably their goal, right? It doesn't mean they don't want war with Iran. It's just, again, like Biden, they don't want it now. They've got other things on their plate. So the Russians have that card in negotiations that they can present. We can talk to the Iranians like you can't. And if your concern is, dialing back their support for the axis of resistance and making sure they don't follow a nuclear armament path, well, we can talk. we might be able to guarantee that. I think that both things are likely anyway, but the Russians might be able to use that as leverage in conversation. So it's very interesting how Russia is trying to present that opportunity there, and it is not completely. Again, the Iranians are not completely adverse to that. They've already indicated that. So that's a possibility.